To order the City of Cottonwood Planning and Zoning Commission special meeting, Thursday, September 8, 2022 at 6 p.m. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Nelson. Commissioner Stevens.
Here.
Commissioner Peltz.
Here.
Commissioner Glasscott.
Here.
Commissioner Kling. Vice Chairman Garrison. Chairwoman Maston.
Here. Thank you very much. First order of business is to approve the minutes from our last meeting on Monday, July 18, 2022. Do any of the commissioners have any corrections or additions to the minutes?
No.
All right. Can I entertain a motion?
Second.
Move to approve.
Move to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All right, unanimously carried. I now call to order the City of Cottonwood. Oop, I'm sorry. If you guys couldn't tell, I have notes. Our next order of business is informational reports and updates. Mr. Director.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commission. Good evening. Thank you for accommodating this unusual meeting day. Couple things. Let's see. Sorry, I'm trying to get organized here. This last week at the council meeting, they had a first reading on some fee increases for the Community Development Department regarding some signs and temporary certificates of occupancy that should go to September 20th for an approval. They also approved this past Tuesday the fence height amendment that you guys recommended to them. Would require a conditional use permit for front yard fences over 4 feet. They can go up to 6 feet, but that top 2 feet does have to remain open. Don't forget, Tuesday, September 13th at 6 o'clock at the Rec Center, there is a joint work session with the Planning Commission and City Council. It is at the Rec Center. Hopefully you all can make it. Please let us know if you can't. I think everybody has said they could. You'll hear from Sunbelt regarding what was known as the 89 and Vine project. They've now changed it to the Westcott. So they want to have both groups see what they're trying to propose. We are still looking to have an October 5th joint meeting with the Historic Preservation Commission. That would be at the clubhouse across the street at 6 o'clock. I think that is a Wednesday. We'll send out more information as that gets closer, and that's going to be to discuss design review by that commission in Old Town only. So keep an eye out for that. We'll send some emails regarding it. As far as the work session goes, packets for that will be available tomorrow afternoon.
Oh, cool.
You should get an email from the city clerk or the deputy clerk some point tomorrow afternoon, so please check your emails. If you don't, it will be available on the city's website. Or you could call or email Kelly and she can get it to you. And I think that's all I have.
Thank you. All right, next, now the next order is call to the public. So if anyone in the public would like to address the commission on any item not on our agenda tonight, now is the time for you to come forward. If you do want to come forward and speak, please fill out one of the forms located near the door in the back there. All right, it doesn't look like anybody wants to come forward, so we're going to move on. We don't have any old business this evening, so we're going to move right into new business. Our first item is GP 22-002. This is a general plan minor amendment of land use designation from PSP to HR. Basically, a zone change.
NZ 22007, the zone change.
Oh, 22002, unless I have a typo.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Yes, well, yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. Commissioners, I'm Gary Davis with Community Development. I will be presenting on these two items simultaneously because they apply to the same project, GP 22002 and Z 22007. 07 is the zone change. So to start with information on the general plan amendment, this is what our general plan designation for land use looks like in this particular area. The site is about 1.2 acres at the north end of 14th Street, just north of the cemetery property. Right now, this whole area, including Riverfront Park and the cemetery, is designated PSP, which is public and semi-public uses. The land use designation is the policy guideline that guides zoning, so all zoning changes have to comply with the general plan land use amendment, a land use map, and vice versa. So for some reason, this private property and the smaller private property adjacent to it were also designated for public and semi-public uses. I couldn't tell you the reason for that. That's been in place for quite a while, but it's kind of unusual. Usually parcels that are publicly owned, like the park and the cemetery, those are the ones that are designated for public and semi-public uses, and also the CF, Community Facility Zone, that we talked about a few meetings ago. Those apply to that type of property as well, but usually not to privately owned property. On the zone change side, this is what the zoning looks like in the area. Again, the site is shown here. The larger parcel on the site is currently zoned AR 43, a 1 acre minimum lot size zone. That is also the zoning for the Riverfront Park. The neighborhood to the south is all zoned R4, including the cemetery, for whatever reason. It's still zoned R4. And to the north of the property, northeast, that is the city limits, and that's county. That's a 35,000 square foot minimum lot size zone, so nearly an acre minimum lot size up there, which is accessible off of 16th and Francaro Road. The Cottonwood Ditch runs along the north side of these parcels here and the north side of the subject property as well. So to zoom in a little bit on the property and tell you some of the details on it, right now there are 3 parcels. The big one is 1 acre. That's the one that's zoned AR 43. There's another private 0.1 acre parcel that's adjacent that's zoned R4. And then there's another 0.1 acre parcel that's currently zoned R4 that's a portion of the city cemetery. This, if you read in your report here, this a previous owner had fenced off the northern 27 feet of the cemetery and has been encroaching on that for several years. The city has not needed that, obviously, and we had a meeting with the city council to discuss the concept of swapping that land for consideration of the trail access, which I'll tell you about in a moment. So what's being proposed here is taking these 3 parcels and doing an action that combines the 3 parcels and then divides them back into two lots that are divided along where the trail would go. And then the proposal is to apply the R3 zone. Normally, staff would recommend adopting a zoning that is consistent with the adjacent zoning, which is R4. However, our zoning code is very specific about city policy not wanting to apply more R4 zoning. So we're substituting R3 in this case. R3 is still very consistent because it's the same density. The main difference is that R4 would allow manufactured homes, R3 would not. And the minimum lot size for R3, any new lot that gets created has to be over 7,500 square feet. So to give you an idea of what the configuration would be like, here's the survey that was submitted by the applicant that was in your packet. The blue line is the ditch on the north side of the property. 14th Street comes in from the south. There's also a small bit of right-of-way that was laid out as an alley, essentially, for houses fronting on Navajo Street. This is a subdivision that was platted in 1917, so it goes back quite a ways. And so right now, the one lot, the bigger lot is 1 acre in size. The smaller lot is off to the lower left, and that's the one that's about 1/10 of an acre. And then the city parcel that's the north 27 feet of the cemetery is in green. Right now there is there's kind of a dry ditch running along the edge of 14th Street and creates a little mini wash going across the property. There's a cattle guard with at the entrance to this property, and the city has a drainage easement across this property to get water flowing downhill towards the ditch. And that's the drainage easement location approximately.
Mm-hmm.
So the proposal is to take this and combine them together and create 2 lots. One lot would be on the west, one lot on the east, and there would be a 20-foot utility and access public trail easement that would be along the line between the 2 lots. And that would give the city an opportunity to someday hopefully build a trail from the neighborhood directly into the park. Right now, if somebody from this neighborhood wants to walk to the park, there is no direct access at all. They would have to walk down to Main Street, around the cemetery, over to 10th Street, and into the park that way. This would create a direct access. It would also create a line of sight, so there's no real hiding spaces for people using that trail. It seems to be a good alignment for a trail. That's going to be subject to getting funding. That would be subject to also getting permission to cross the ditch with a bridge.
Mm-hmm.
But getting an easement would give us the flexibility some point in the future to be able to do that. And this would also allow for vehicular access from 14th Street to both of the new lots that are being created. That section of 14th Street that's shown there, north of the intersection with Navajo Street, that is unpaved at the moment. So here's a picture of it. This is looking north from the corner of Navajo and 14th Street. The pavement ends about here. The unpaved portion is here. Cemetery property is over to the left. Getting a little closer, you can see the end of the unpaved surface there. To the left is the main entrance to what would be the west lot, and then looking directly north here, this is the drainage easement going here, and the access trail easement would be in about this location. Again, a straight shot up 14th Street, straight to the park. Looking to the west of that, you can see where the fence was created to cut off the north 27 feet of the cemetery line. Cemetery use is over here. And looking to the east of that section, this is that alley I was talking about that goes along the south portion of what would be the east lot, that long triangular piece. So that's the proposal. We had the applicant have a neighborhood meeting. That took place on April 1st. And some notes that were provided by the applicant on that meeting. The names of the people were Chris Canning, Alice Elabrio, and Brenda and Ronald Eldred. Chris Canning was concerned that she lives in one of these houses here, has a water line going across this property to get water out of the ditch. Apparently she has water rights to the ditch, and she wanted to know if she could still get water rights. And the answer is yes. Either a future property owner could dedicate an easement for that, or possibly work with the city to run it down the street here to access the old alleyway to access the ditch. The other comment was from Brenda and Ronald Eldred, who own a income property at the northeast corner of 14th and Navajo. Their concern was about dust coming into the rental house with with increased traffic to new units here. And the other, Alice Alabrio, had no comments, and all of them were in favor of the concept of having a direct access to the park there. We did receive a comment from the Eldreds, and you should have received a copy of that before the meeting. I'll just paraphrase it for the record here. They had two concerns. Again, it was the traffic increase on the dirt road, going from the end of the pavement up to the property. That's about 130, 140 feet, linear feet. I talked with our Public Works office, and they said that if someone came in for a proposal for a duplex or triplex on one of these properties, that paving that road would be part of the off-site requirements that we would make them do. We typically make people provide off-site improvements like new sidewalks wherever there's missing sidewalk. This wouldn't be very formal because everything in the neighborhood is pretty much just a 20-foot wide strip of pavement, and that we would just require them to match that. It wouldn't have to be a full sidewalk curb gutter situation, but that's what Public Works would require. So hopefully that would take care of the comments about the dust with additional multifamily uses on there. Multifamily uses, by the way, are permitted in R3. R3 permits a fairly high density, but given the strange configuration of the site and the fact that we would require parking on site as well, probably limits the number of units that could come in there, so we don't anticipate a whole lot of traffic going up and down that road. The other issue that the Eldreds had was parking, concerned about people driving here and parking and using that access to the park. We don't anticipate that if somebody drives and wants to go to the park, that they would be stopping here and crossing and walking down to there. If they wanted to go to the park, we've got parking down here. I don't know if there might be overflow situations during heavy softball tournaments or something like that at the ball fields, but in general, we would not anticipate parking, and the proposal that the Eldreds have is to make additional parking part of the newly zoned property. We wouldn't require or advocate requiring public parking on the private property here. And if parking does become an issue, there might be other alternatives within the right-of-way here. But that's the one and only comment that we've received so far. We do have the applicant in attendance tonight if you have any questions of her, if she wants to add anything to the presentation. But other than that, that concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Great, thank you. Do any of the commissioners have any questions for staff? Please go ahead.
Okay, my question is for the general plan minor amendment of land use from the public, semi-public to the high-density residential. Correct me if I mathed correctly or incorrectly. Let's say down the road somebody wants to build duplexes, apartments, etc. Would that be up to 29 units or less?
Yes, Commissioner Stevens, the maximum density in R3 is up to 29 units. But we find that very few people can achieve densities anywhere near that, especially on a small property, especially on one that has a very narrow triangular angle between the requirements for parking and
Fire.
Open space in a multifamily community. Densities would be, we anticipate densities much lower than that.
Like just eyeballing it, like 5, maybe. Maybe better.
That might be.
You even think
that
that's
might be
high?
generous? Yeah.
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 Because remember, the whole thing is about 1.2 acres, and a third of it would be over here. So
And you can't use any of that corner because
it's
you can't get
a
the.
question of how much you can get on a third of an acre here. There might be more potential over here, but yeah, the potential is limited. There is a house there, so if that stays, that's kind of right in the middle of the lot. hard to tell. So we don't know exactly how many units would be there, but we don't anticipate anybody achieving anywhere near the maximum in R3.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Because you have to remember too, and this isn't just for you, it's for anybody listening, we also have like height maximums as well. It's not like somebody can just go straight up into the sky to achieve the density. So
our maximum building height would be 2.5 stories. So between not being able to go up and not being able to go out into potential parking area and open space, that's plus which a good portion of this property on the edge is within the ditch
oh, that's true
easement, if not the ditch itself. So lot of limiting factors there.
I amend my guess to 3.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions for staff?
No.
All right, thank you very much. If the applicant would like to speak, we'll have her up. Please introduce yourself for the record.
Okay. My name is Susan Masters, and the reason why I wanted to make 2 lots is because the part by the city has been, it's fenced off, and so it's right next to the little barn that's there, so it really appears like it's the property, because I bought it, I thought it was with the property, right? And so it made sense that, and I've been up to different councils to have that to me. And anyway, so the best thing that I could come up with was to divide the property, and they wanted to do a walkway to the park, and it made sense to have two lots, because nobody's going to want to have because I'm thinking of selling my property. Nobody's going to want to have a lot that people are going right in the middle. So it made good sense because I always wanted to be able to get to the park. And when they'd clean the ditch, I'd be over in the park all the time, and then, because they'd drain the water. And then as soon as the water would come back, then I'd have to go around. So I thought this would be a really good thing for the community, too, to be able to get right over to the park. So it just seemed like it'd be a win-win. So that's kind of my thinking on it.
No, thank you. Do any of the commissioners have any questions for the applicant? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, do we have anyone here from the public who would like to speak on behalf of or against this project with us tonight? All right, I don't see anyone from the public, so I'm closing the floor to the public at this point. And now we're just collecting the thoughts of the commissioners. So we'll just start over here with Commissioner Stevens. What are your thoughts on this project?
Only the future, but other than that, I think it seems good.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Commissioner Glaskett?
I agree. I like the idea of what she just shared with us. That brought some clarity, and I like the access to the park.
Commissioner Kling?
I think it really does maximize the highest and best use for that size and shape of parcel, and I always appreciate trail access. I think that's the right direction to go, and it seems that you have cooperation in that, so I'm all for it.
Commissioner Peltz?
I can see the benefit of it. It gives a benefit to the city, and it gives a benefit to the owner. Takes care of the problem that they're having with the cemetery. The buildability on the site, I'm not worried about that because of just the size, the shape. You're going to be very limited to what you can and can't put into there, and you'd be lucky to even put a large unit of any type on that. It'd be a great home and a great little farm area. I think it's a win, so I'm fine with that.
My thoughts echo a lot of my fellow commissioners. I mostly see this as a way for the city to gain that trail access in the future, hopefully. I see this as a way to improve the quality of life for the people who already live in that neighborhood. And while I understand that some of the concerns that have been presented to us tonight with the letters, I do think that those issues would actually be handled at the time when any potential projects go in, because they will go through the approval process. You know, we will have to put in necessary access roads with paving. Like, these things will be taken care of at their due time. But for tonight, when we're just focusing on the zone change, we can't try to divine the future. We just have to approve what's in front of us. So I think that this is a good thing overall. Did you have something to add? Okay. I can never tell.
Just here in case.
All right. I think we are ready to entertain a motion, Commissioner Glasgow.
On both?
Yes, we'll just do them both at the same
Two
time.
separate motions would
Yeah.
be good.
Okay. I move to recommend approval to the City Council for GP 22002 to change the land use designation from PSP to HR for approximately 1.2 acres.
All right. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Very good. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Peltz,
Yes.
Commissioner Glasscott,
Yes.
Commissioner Kling,
Yes.
Chairwoman Maston.
Yes. All right, unanimously carried. Let's move on to the second.
I move to recommend approval to the City Council for Z 2207 to change the zoning classification from AR 43 and R4 to R3 for approximately 1.2 acres.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Peltz,
Yes.
Commissioner Glasscott,
Yes.
Commissioner Kling,
Yes.
Chairwoman Maston.
Yes, unanimously carried. Good luck. All right, next agenda item is, let's see, this is ZO004, yes? ZO2204? Yes, the cluster subdivisions.
Hi, good evening, Madam Chair, Commission. My name is Tina Hayden. I'm planner for community development for Cottonwood, and I am presenting a proposal for the zoning ordinance amendment to allow for cluster subdivision. A couple of key points I'd like to address. The lot size requirements, that is minimum, maximum lot size requirements, control the density in residential zones. Cluster development features retain density similar to conventional development. Another feature is they require preservation of natural open space. They allow for smaller lot sizes, and they are advantageous for sites with physical constraints such as washes or cliffs. As of right now, the only tool for lot size flexibility is the planned area development PAD zoning process. This is actually cost intensive and time intensive. What staff is proposing is a proactive measure to allow an additional tool for developers. Here we have some examples of conventional subdivisions versus cluster development. In both examples, we have the same density. We also have the same areas of steep slope here, here, and then here and here. In conventional subdivision, these steep slope areas are incorporated into the properties here, whereas in the cluster subdivision, they are reserved for natural open space. One other thing I'd like to add is that with conventional subdivisions, we estimate roughly 10% of the land is set aside for infrastructure, whereas for cluster development, we estimate about 8% of the land is set aside for infrastructure. This slide, or this table is, the whole point of this table is to show the potential percentage of natural open space here. The top row here is for conventional subdivisions, and the bottom series of rows is for cluster development. With the conventional subdivision, we have different scenarios of 10 acres, 100 acres, and 200 acres. Same for cluster subdivisions. For conventional, our minimum lot area is 20,000 square feet, and this gives us roughly 2 units per acre. And then our open space requirements would be 0%, and as you can see, we have 0% allocated to natural open space. For the cluster development, we are proposing a reduction for the AR20 zone to reduce the minimum lot area to 10,000 square feet, and we are proposing a requirement of 20% natural open space. We have the similar densities to that of conventional, roughly 2 units per acre. and the potential percentage of natural open space meets and exceeds our 20% requirement. I'd like to also point out that there is obviously a difference in the maximum lots here versus the cluster subdivision. That is because with the conventional subdivision, when we are calculating for the density, we actually remove about 10% of the land and allocate it for the infrastructure, whereas for the cluster subdivision, we calculate the density out of the entire 100% of land that is available. So with this slide, unless you want me to go into greater detail like I did with the first one, I just want to point out that for the cluster subdivision, we are recommending change from 43,000 square feet to 20,000 square feet, and we are requiring 30% of natural open space. We maintain the same relative densities, and the potential percentage of natural open space meets and exceeds the requirement. With the AR 70, this minimum lot area is 70,000 square feet. We are recommending to reduce that to 35,000 square feet and require 30% natural open space. Again, similar densities, and it meets and exceeds our 30% requirement. And then lastly, for AR 87, currently we require 87,000 square feet and 0% open space. The new proposed requirement would be 35,000 square feet with 40% natural open space. And again, we have similar densities, and it meets and exceeds that requirement. And that is it for my presentation. I am open for any questions.
All right. Commissioners, do you have any questions about the cluster subdivisions?
I have a quick question just on when you're numbering them. So you got AR 87, which is 87,000 square feet, right? But you're going to change it to AR 87 cluster at 35. Are you going to change that number to AR 35
We have
to
no
coincide with the square feet?
we
Because that
have-
seems what you're doing there.
Commissioner Glasscat, we have no intention of changing that, changing the name of it. It's just in the AR 87 zoning district, there is that potential for the developer to reduce the minimum lot size and give us that that percentage of natural open space.
So to clarify for everybody listening, just this is a choice that developers make. They can choose to do the traditional 87, which is why you would keep the name, and then they could also choose to take the cluster approach.
Thank you.
This presentation tonight was brought forward to us about several weeks ago. What's the difference from the time we spoke about this weeks ago to tonight? And why has it been brought up again?
So when that was brought up, it was a discussion. We were just introducing the idea to see if there was any interest in it. Since then, we have created these tables of data to calculate some scenarios to show you how it would work with developers and what the potential is. Because with that excess percentage of open space, developers don't have to stick to the 35,000 square feet. They can increase lot sizes and vary them, or just leave it as natural open space.
Okay, thank you.
We're also asking the commission tonight to make a recommendation to council on it, whereas Tina mentioned last time it was just for discussion.
Yeah. Are there any other questions for staff?
This may be redundant, but just to be clear, so hypothetically, let's say a developer opted to use the cluster option in this case, and for whatever reason, a buyer, say, or owner wanted to do a double lot. There's no restriction on that. I mean, they can still be flexible in terms of the max and do two if they, or, I mean, is there any restriction on that where if they wanted a double lot, that would not be an option? Or did to leave one free, or is there any, because it would then be back up to the max of the conventional. Does that make sense?
Just to clarify with the double lot, are we discussing a lot division in the future?
Correct. So let's say they developed it out and there's a choice of lots for, say, a potential buyer, first in. Would that be an option or any restriction as far as size at that point where they couldn't be flexible
As- So what I would say is that as long as for AR 87, if there is, we'd say 70,000 square feet in a lot, they could do that lot division, but this is the minimum amount of area.
So if they were a 35 option to double it or anything like that would not be.
They could increase the lot size? Yeah, they could do that.
And be flexible.
Yeah, I don't tend to worry too much about being overly prescriptive when we're giving people a choice, because they're choosing the way that they want to structure their development. Like, they have that option from the very beginning. And that's how it seems like this, am I reading that right? That's how it seems like this is set up. Are there any additional details? This is a little unconventional. Are there any additional details about the cluster that staff would like to share that weren't in the presentation, that the questions maybe? Okay. Thank you very much, Tina. Is there anyone here from the public who would like to speak to this agenda item? All right, there's no one there, so I'm going to close the floor to the public. And at this point, we're just going to collect some of the commission's thoughts. Commissioner Stevens, what are your thoughts on this?
I agreed with it before, and I still agree with it.
I think we mostly know where everyone stands. This is just Robert's Rules of Order.
Yes, I concur.
I liked it then, I like it now.
All right. Commissioner Peltz?
I feel the same way.
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea.
I'm extremely in favor of this. I love open space. I think that the local citizens love open space, and a lot of folks are sort of aware that we have more people moving here, but they want to retain their open space, and this is a good way to start planning for that. So with that, I am going to ask to entertain a recommendation motion.
Okay, I move to recommend approval to the City Council the proposed amendments to sections 201, 411D, 412D, 425D, and 428D.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Peltz?
Yes.
Commissioner Glasscott?
Yes.
Commissioner Kling?
Yes.
Chairwoman Maston?
Yes, unanimously carried. All right, I know I do use it sometimes. When I remember that it's there, I use it. All right, we do have a discussion item regarding updates on existing residential projects.
Forgive me, who seconded that? I can't, you guys have got to
Stevens.
speak. Okay,
Sorry.
thank you.
Oh, and just as a reminder, I'm
Please.
supposed to remind you all guys all the time. Into the mic, push the button. Or be super loud like me. One of those. All right, so we do have a discussion item regarding an update on existing projects.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Last time we met, staff was asked to bring a update forward to you to bring you up to date on where we're at with upcoming residential projects. I handed out a map earlier on. One was a zoning map, which is just for reference, but the other one is showing upcoming projects. Kind of shows up here, but it'll show up better on your map there. The projects that are in green are projects that are either in construction now or are eligible for building permits. And so there's quite a few, both multifamily and single family. Down at the bottom of the map, it shows the number of units and also whether it's multifamily, which is MF, or single family, SF. And I totaled those up, and it's about 429 multifamily units that could be built or are being built now, and about 314 single-family units in just the green areas alone. Most of that 314 single-family number is in the Mesquite Hills number 2 over here. If you haven't been up there recently, they've been building their streets and are putting in, they've got a subdivision of 272 in that second unit alone. So that accounts for most of that. The other projects around town, the Inspiration, 192 apartment units across from the hospital on 89A. That's in construction right now. And a number of these other ones have either gotten a design review approval or zoning approval through the Planning Commission, and they are ready to go, including the bungalows, which we saw just recently. That's on the list here. They are eligible to go forward with building permits now. So there is quite a healthy number of units that are in the pipeline, eligible to be going forward so far. The purple properties are the ones where there have been serious discussions. They've come in and discussed things with staff. We just don't have a formal application. They're pending some zoning action that needs to be taken. They're not eligible to build as is, so they would need to come in and get some approvals. The Spring Creek Ranch, we have not received an application on yet. The Westcott area, which is the new name for 89 and Vine. That 89 Vine project has been in the works for quite some time, since before we annexed it back in the early 2000s. They are in the process of trying to work out a amendment to the master development plan that was approved on there before, so you'll be hearing more about that in the near future. Vineyards was approved for a total of 555 units. They've developed units 1 and 2 right now, are both under construction, and there is a third unit in there possibly. If the third unit is completed, then that's 91 out of the approved 555 acres potentially in vineyards. The future units would have to get approvals through design review if they follow what's in the master development plan. Silverado Lofts, we have an application in for a rezone for a PAD for 152 apartment complex. That's the property behind Walmart on Silverado and Rodeo. Another potential project, a small development, multifamily development on Birch, just east of Maine. And then there's a large project or piece of property out here on West Mingus that I believe is some 470 acres of R1, excuse me, AR 70 and AR 43 land that if we have a cluster subdivision option, that might be an option for them, as well as some other properties around town. Again, nothing is approved, has even been submitted at this point, but just to let you know, these are ones that are potentially coming your way.
All right. Thank you very much. It's a good update. Just another opportunity for commissioners to ask you questions if they have any. All right. That is very good. Thank you very much. Sure. I really appreciate the maps.
Maps are good. Yes.
Maps are good. I didn't have a printed one to put on my wall, and now I do. All right. Are there any suggested topics for future meetings? That seems like a no. All right. I make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Meeting adjourned. I'm wicked fast.